Welcome to the Redline Politics. Stay ahead of the headlines. Subscribe now and never miss the next big clash. For millions of Americans, those words landed like a punch to the chest. Charlie Kirk wasn't just another conservative commentator. He was the founder of Turning Point USA, a political influencer with a massive following, and one of the loudest voices in defense of Donald Trump and conservative values. And now, in an instant, he's gone. Shot dead at a Utah event on September 10, 2025. The news ripped through America like wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags like Noshk Charlie Kirk and political violence were trending across social media. Supporters were devastated. Opponents, some quietly, some openly, questioned what this meant for the already fragile state of U.S. politics. The timing, the symbolism, the brutality. It was enough to set the stage for one of the most divisive debates in modern American history. And that's where the fire truly began. Republicans immediately called it what they believed it was, a political assassination. They argued that years of toxic rhetoric from Democrats and left-leaning media had fueled hatred strong enough to kill. To them, Kirk wasn't just a man. He was a martyr, a victim of what they call the politics of hate. But Democrats weren't having it. They condemned the violence, yes, but they also pushed back, accusing Republicans of weaponizing a tragedy for political gain. Leading the charge on that side of the debate was none other than Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a fiery Democrat known for her no-nonsense takedowns in committee hearings and TV appearances. She fired back hard, insisting that Republicans had twisted the narrative, using Kirk's death as a way to silence critics and score political points. And so the stage was set, a nation divided. Two sides screaming across the aisle and the ghost of Charlie Kirk hovering over every word. Was this truly the result of political hate? Or was it something deeper? A symptom of an America tearing itself apart from the inside? This is not just a story about a man's death. It's a story about the clash of two Americas. It's about Republicans and Democrats, about free speech and violence, about truth and propaganda colliding in real time. The shock hadn't even settled before the political knives came out. Within hours of the news breaking, Republican leaders were on camera, their voices trembling with both grief and fury. This was not random, one Republican senator declared on Fox News. This was the inevitable result of years of Democrat-fueled hate speech. Charlie Kirk was assassinated because he dared to speak the truth. The language was sharp, deliberate, and designed to frame the tragedy as more than just a single violent act. To Republicans, Kirk's death symbolized a war being waged against conservative voices in America. They pointed to countless instances where Charlie had been vilified online, where his speeches on college campuses were met with protests, and where his name had been dragged through mud by mainstream outlets. Now, with his blood spilled on American soil, conservatives felt they had proof that rhetoric could kill. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Near Justice for Charlie and End the Hate dominated conservative circles. Prominent Republican figures from Donald Trump Jr. to Marjorie Taylor Greene amplified the narrative that this was political murder, pure and simple. Memes of Kirk as a martyr circulated within hours, and rallies in his name were already being planned. But Democrats weren't silent. Within the same window of time, Democratic leaders issued official statements condemning the act of violence. No life should ever be lost to political hatred, House Democrats said in a joint release. Yet almost immediately their tone shifted. The message from Democrats was clear. Violence was unacceptable, but Republicans had no right to exploit this tragedy for political gain. Enter Jasmine Crockett. On live television, her words cut through the noise like a blade. Republicans are already turning this into a weapon, she said. Instead of honoring a man's life, they're trying to score points, spread fear, and divide Americans even further. That's not justice. That's opportunism. Her remarks went viral. Clips of her fiery rebuke circulated across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, sparking heated debates in the comments section. Some praised her for standing firm against Republican spin, while others accused her of disrespecting Kirk's legacy before he was even laid to rest. The back and forth escalated quickly. News networks leaned into the drama. Conservative outlets blasted Crockett as heartless, accusing her of defending violent extremists. Liberal commentators countered by painting Republicans as opportunists exploiting grief. By the end of the first 24 hours, America wasn't mourning together. It was fighting, shouting, and dividing deeper than ever before. A man was dead, but the political war machine had only just begun. And at the center of the firestorm stood Jasmine Crockett, unapologetic, unflinching, and ready to take on every accusation Republicans threw her way. This wasn't just about Charlie Kirk anymore. It was about control of the narrative. The chaos spilled beyond the chamber walls. News anchors scrambled for footage, social media ignited like wildfire, and hashtags about Charlie Kirk's assassination shot to the top within minutes. But amidst the frenzy, something darker was brewing. Republicans rallied in fury, claiming the assassination was proof that Democrats would stop at nothing to silence their strongest voices. Democrats, on the other hand, fired back, insisting that extremist rhetoric from the right had provoked violence in the first place. And then came Jasmine Crockett. With cameras flashing and microphones thrust into her face, she didn't hesitate. Her words cut sharper than the tragedy itself. She declared, "Don't twist this into your propaganda. If you want to talk about political violence, look at your own side first." The chamber gasped. That wasn't just a response, it was a detonation. The line drew a red-hot boundary in the sand, sparking outrage across the aisle. Republicans roared in anger, Democrats clapped in defiance, and the entire nation watched, paralyzed between disbelief and fear. This was no longer just a clash of politicians, it was a collision of narratives. Each side tried to seize control of the moment, twisting Charlie Kirk's name into a weapon for their own war. The truth was slipping away, replaced by headlines crafted to inflame, not to inform. For millions watching at home, the question was chilling. Was this the death of one man, or the death of trust itself in America's democracy? The chamber had turned into a battlefield. Not with guns or knives, but with words so sharp they could wound deeper than any bullet. Every sentence, every accusation, every fiery retort carried the weight of a nation's anger. Cameras zoomed in on Jasmine Crockett's face as she stood unshaken, her voice echoing through the hall. "You want to turn this tragedy into theater? Then I will give the people the truth." Her words were met with thunderous reactions. Republicans pounded the desks, shouting that she was exploiting Charlie Kirk's death. Democrats rose in applause, cheering her defiance. The chaos was unbearable, yet no one dared to leave. And then, like a knife cutting through the noise, came a single chilling realization. This wasn't about Charlie Kirk anymore. It was about control. Control of the narrative. Control of the truth. Control of the people. The cameras caught it all. Politicians screaming over each other, reporters whispering into microphones, the crowd outside chanting in rage. America wasn't watching a debate. America was watching its democracy unravel, live on air. By the time the gavel finally slammed to restore order, the damage had already been done. No speech, no vote, no headline could erase what the world had just seen. Charlie Kirk's assassination was no longer a single act of violence. It had become a symbol, a spark that set fire to the heart of American politics. And as the dust settled, one terrifying question lingered in every mind. If words could divide a nation this far, what happens when actions follow? The silence that followed was heavier than the chaos itself, because deep down, everyone knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The night after the debate, America did not sleep. The streets outside the Capitol were still flooded with protesters, candles lit, fists raised, voices screaming into the cold air. Every network ran the same images on repeat. Jasmine Crockett standing her ground, Republicans pointing fingers, and the chaos that looked less like democracy and more like collapse. Commentators filled the screens. Some called Crockett a hero who refused to be silenced. Others branded her a manipulator who weaponized grief. Hashtags exploded on social media. Interruption justice. For Charlie battled against truth with Crockett. The internet was no longer a place for dialogue. It was a war zone of words. News tickers ran with headlines that felt more like warnings than stories. A divided nation erupts after Kirk assassination debate. Crockett versus Republicans. Who owns the narrative? Is democracy collapsing before our eyes? Inside private rooms, party leaders plotted their next move. Republicans vowed to take back control and punish those they claimed were exploiting tragedy. Democrats prepared to rally public support behind Crockett, framing her as a symbol of defiance against a system that thrived on silence. And the people, ordinary citizens, watched in confusion, anger, and fear. For them, Charlie Kirk wasn't just a politician anymore. His death had become a trigger, a sign that the fragile balance holding America together had cracked. By sunrise, one fact was undeniable. The assassination had stopped being a single moment in time. It had transformed into a movement, and movements don't die quietly. They grow, they spread, and they consume everything in their path. The question was no longer who fired the shot, but who would survive the fallout. While the nation argued in the open, something far more dangerous was happening behind closed doors. In smoke-filled rooms of Washington, power brokers whispered plans no camera would ever capture. Intelligence officials held files marked classified, debating whether to release evidence that could shatter everything or bury it to keep the system intact. Lobbyists and billionaires lined up, ready to invest in whichever side could promise them control once the dust settled. It was here, away from the chants and flashing cameras, that the real war was being fought. Not with speeches, but with secrets. Not with debates, but with deals. Some claimed Charlie Kirk's death wasn't just an act of violence, it was a signal. A message to those in power that no one was untouchable. Others believed it was orchestrated, designed to ignite the very chaos now consuming America. But no one dared to say it out loud. Because if the truth surfaced, it wouldn't just topple careers, it could unravel the entire foundation of trust holding the Republic together. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett became both a symbol and a target. Her fiery words inside the chamber replayed endlessly across networks, but so did the threats against her. Anonymous messages, chilling warnings, and whispers that she knew too much. Yet she refused to back down. Her defiance turned her into a lightning rod. Supporters rallied, seeing her as the voice of courage in a storm of cowardice. Opponents sharpened their knives, waiting for the perfect chance to strike. And through it all, the question that haunted every corner of Washington was simple. If one death could shake the nation this violently, what happens when the next spark ignites? Because deep in the shadows, everyone knew this wasn't over. The storm had only just begun. The nation stood on the edge of a knife. Every news anchor shouted predictions. Every politician pushed their version of the truth, and every citizen waited for the next headline that could rewrite history overnight. Charlie Kirk's assassination had done what no election, no scandal, no policy debate had ever achieved. It stripped the mask off American politics and revealed the raw, unfiltered chaos underneath. But beneath the noise, something more chilling was happening. The people no longer asked why Kirk was killed. They asked what comes next. And in that silence between questions, fear grew louder than facts. Jasmine Crockett walked out of the Capitol that night into a sea of flashing cameras. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight she carried. She knew the war wasn't about her words alone. It was about who controlled the story, and in turn, who controlled the people. The crowds outside chanted her name while others cursed it. America wasn't divided anymore, it was fractured. And fractures, once deep enough, don't heal. They break. Somewhere in the darkness, plans were already being written. More hearings, more battles, more blood maybe. Because once power tastes chaos, it never lets go. And so the story didn't end with the gavel, or the speeches, or even the headlines. It ended with a question. One that echoed across every home, every street, every corner of the nation. If truth itself can be assassinated, what hope does democracy have left? The screen fades to black. The silence is unbearable, because everyone watching knows the same terrifying truth. This wasn't the final chapter. It was only the prologue,